Welcome to Euroforum UG, where we address Ugandans from Europe, USA, Asia, Africa, Australia, and all over the globe. We share experiences, opinions, and expertise on current affairs, educative lifestyle, religion, and family matters. Follow, subscribe, and like our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Euroforum UG. You can also join our live shows every weekend on our social media platforms. For more information, visit our social media platforms or email us at euroforumug@gmail.com or WhatsApp us on +4740 574040. Euroforum UG, communicating with peers.
As we continue counting our blessings and naming them one by one, we again count a blessing of a new day we got today. And among the decisions we made today is a decision to spare 2 hours of our time to come and be of impact. We want to thank you all who spared time to come and watch Euroforum. Moses Mugisha is your host today. I'm right here sending you direct live from Oslo, Norway, the country of the Vikings, the country with the most fuels in the world. Again, it's the country with the largest sculpture park in the world. That's Frogner Parken or Vigilant Parken. We want to invite your attention and interaction as we sail through another segment of Euroforum, where we communicate with peers. Tune in and ask a friend to come and tune in. We interact. We're having another segment where we're going to tap into a story of another gentleman who has lived 35 years in Sweden. He came when he was still a child, and he has walked a life in Sweden. Definitely, this tells so much how big his basket of experience and life stories are. We often believe that we know people, but until they come and open up their stories by themselves, that's when we know that we know little about the people we think we do know. Euroforum grants us an opportunity to tap into those stories, open up topics, give reflections and ideas about a range of topics. We discuss different topics ranging from social lifestyle topics. The only lane we don't go is politics, but otherwise we take on a range of topics, including entertainment and name it all. I want to invite your attention to walk with me as we take a digital journey to Stockholm, Sweden, where we've met a gentleman, Fahad Luyombya. Fahad Luyombya has been hosted here before, I think 2 years ago, and I was seated on a panel where I was interacting on issues to do with mental health. And I've understood that that's partly his line of work. Today, we want to know the Fahad, who you and I think that we know. We want to see who is he, how far has he come with life, and where is he taking his life anyway. Of course, there is a joke that runs around that you can only know where the future takes you until you keep track of your past. But it seems like a joke, but in many aspects it's a fact. And this joke runs around how people live a life like there is no tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to invite my brother, my friend, and a guest who has been here on Euroforum before. Fahad.
Yes.
Yes, Sevu. So glad to have you here, Sevu. Greet our viewers.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Sevu Fahad. We are coming here to tap into your story. But before we go into the depth of the story we are very eager to tap into, I want to remind you all that we are live on YouTube and Facebook. Please remember to tune in on either of them. But it would be in our best interest if you opted for YouTube. We are currently facing a challenge that Facebook has adopted a new policy where live videos can only last 30 days. After that, they are taken down. So we'd love to enjoy more of this even decades to come. So if you tune in on YouTube, then we are sure we shall have this video for decades to come. Otherwise, to you watching us from Norway, I want to remind you and encourage you, those who haven't yet voted. Tomorrow is the last day. We are voting parliamentary members or sitting representatives, and who will in turn elect the new prime minister. It is our privilege, but also an obligation for us to vote. Those who have voting rights, please spare time, go and vote. I know around different places in Norway, you're seeing such posters around, encouraging you to go and vote, or different posters showing you where you can vote. It might be a busy schedule you're having, but remember, it's also part of your right, but also a privilege that comes with that red passport you bear, to be able to vote or to influence the leadership of your country. Statistics from 2021, the last time we voted, showed that 50% of immigrants with voting rights never voted. That speaks so much of how much we throw away the rights or privileges we have. Sebo Fahad.
Yes.
Yes, Sebo. Katugenema. So to you watching us, I just want to make an apology that somewhere, somehow, this is going to be entirely an English show. But naturally, we might end up bending somehow in Luganda, and kindly bear with us. Sebo Fahad, so glad to have you, Sebo.
Thank you very much. So glad to be here.
35 years in Sweden. When did you come to Sweden?
We came to Sweden, actually it was 9th of August, 1990.
1990.
Sunny day in the summer time where we came to Sweden.
Yes, and you having lived 35 years in Sweden, I won't fear to ask you how old you were by then. You're more of a Swedish now. You don't fear to talk about your age, I guess.
No, I was 3 years old. I was born in 1987 in Kampala, Uganda. As you said, my name is Fahad Luyombya, and I'm a Muganda. And in that essence of a tribe, and also in Uganda, Nedida Rugave.
Oh, Msajo Mugave.
Yes.
Fahad Luyombya. Yes. Do you have any memories before you left to Uganda? Do you have any particular memory? I know it might sound funny, but do you have any memory you have from Uganda by the time before you left?
I think there is one memory I still have. I remember, but just vaguely, but I still remember the flight from Uganda to Sweden. I remember packing. It was me, my mother, and my older brother. And I think we had a housekeeper. And I was telling all the neighbors, because the neighbors came out, and I was telling them, "Ngenda Swedeni." I didn't know what it was. I was just telling it. And maybe I thought that it would be just, I'm going to the village, I will be coming back. But I remember that all the neighbors came out to greet us and to say goodbye. And then I still remember the flight, actually. The flight from Uganda to Sweden, some point, because I remember my brother was ill and I was a bit of ill, and we couldn't sleep. And my mother told us, on the hallway. So we slept there. I remember, I still have that memory so strongly.
Okay.
Yes, that is the thing I remember last from my time as a child in Uganda. Yes.
Yeah, it's so incredible how a human mind can store stuff. At 3 years, you have purchased a memory that.
Yes.
I want to believe that those who are on board that flight myself seen these are typical Africans.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, Fahad. Before we dive into your story,
Yeah.
you definitely know yourself as an individual, but
Yeah.
how do you know yourself?
I know myself as a very strong, straightforward person. I say what I when I believe in something, I go for it. I'm very 100%. I do it when I the thing I like or something I believe in, I go all the way. And actually, I have a colleague that have a saying that he say, "You cannot be when he describes me, he says, Fahad is like, he cannot be half pregnant. Either he does something or he doesn't do it at all. And that describes me as a person. I I am determined, very, very determined in things I do. And I'm a loyal person. I have strong beliefs, but I have also down to earth. I analyze things, and I kind of try to analyze before I do something. Is this worth it or is this not? And I enjoy company. I enjoy to be around people, to sit, to laugh, to have a good time. That's pretty much who I am.
And how do you think your close friends know you as?
Oh, my close friends know me as the organizer. I am the one that organize things, the fix things, to do the gatherings. Let's meet up. Let's do this. And I am the one they can call anytime if they need something. They know. I'm only one call away. That I think that's how they describe me.
Love it.
Mm.
Yes, it's flipping that question is seems obvious, but it turns out to be a catastrophe to some of us. Fahad, August 1990, you land in Stockholm, Sweden.
Yeah.
You start working a journey.
We landed in Stockholm, Sweden, and actually it was me, my mom, and my brother. My father has already moved here earlier. I think he left when I was only 6 months old to organize so we can come here. And we started by living in a hostel in the central Stockholm about 8 or 9 months before we moved to a village called Husby in Stockholm. And we still have the pictures when we were young and we saw the first snow. They took picture of us in the snow as children. And I have them. I still have them at home. That's one of the first memories in Sweden, seeing the snow for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Have you anywhere along the trail of 35 years, have you ever thought of going back to Uganda? Like having a service over and could
Actually, no, because I was so young. I was just a child. I don't have such memories that Uganda is my home, because Sweden became my home so early. But at home, we had to speak Luganda. We have to act as Bagandas and Ugandas. So it was very important for us to not lose our culture. But I never thought of going back. But sometimes when I misbehave, they could say, if you're not behaving, we will send you back to boarding school. That was a threat I remember, if I misbehaved.
Yes, thank you, Fahad. You watching us, we are having Fahad Luyombya telling his story or life experiences in Sweden. He's lived in Sweden for 35 years. And this definitely speaks a lot on what we should expect from him. So far away from your personality, who you know yourself as, how your friends know you as. And before we tap into your experiences, who do you work as, or what do you work with in Sweden?
I work with young adults, male, that have problems with criminality, drugs, and other social problems, like behavior therapists. I work with them to try to, we work with, to engage them back in society, and who have been having problems. Maybe the parents has been mistreating them, or the parents have problem with the drugs or something like that, and it went on to the children, and the children, because outside the society, maybe they have been in a foster home, or maybe they have been in prison, and they want to change their life back. So we work with trying to treat them and send them back so they can be normally fully citizens again. That's what I work with.
Okay. As you are an immigrant, do you also believe that?
Believe?
You are an immigrant. According to me, you're an immigrant. Do you also believe that?
Yes,
okay.
I believe that.
It sounds funny, but I've met some people in our category who don't even want to be, associated with anything to do with being immigrants.
Okay.
Yes, okay. if you are attending a conference somewhere in Geneva, and you're among people like typical Swedish, typical Norwegian, who are asked to introduce themselves and in very briefly, they would say, da 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 da, a Swedish da da da. So, would you introduce yourself as a Swedish, a Ugandan, if you have to introduce yourself?
If I am outside Sweden, I introduce
Yes,
me.
outside Sweden.
Yes, I introduce me as a Swedish. But if I'm here in Sweden, I introduce me. I'm a Ugandan, because that's the very common question I get. Where do you from? Where the original from? So in Sweden, I introduce I'm a Ugandan. I was born in Uganda. My parents are Ugandan, so I introduce myself as a Ugandan. But when I'm outside Sweden in a conference, then I introduce myself as a Swedish.
Swedish.
I see that actually. I see that as a privilege that I can use the both cultures to introduce myself.
Okay. So Fahad, speak to me on your experience of Sweden, your first year's experience in Sweden.
Oh, my first year's experience. First of all, I was a restless child. I had much energy. I had many. The upbringing was not easy to me, because I was a restless child. I had maybe I don't know. I wanted to explore myself in different ways, and sometimes if I watched a movie, action movie, I went back to the school. I started to do the action movies, and which led to I was disciplined a lot. I was disciplined in a traditional Ugandan way a lot, maybe more than I should have, maybe more. And when I went to school, they told me in Sweden it's illegal to beat your child. But if I'm at home, I'm a Ugandan, and they told me, and my parents tell me, but you're Ugandan, we're gonna discipline you like they do in Uganda. I think that was the first experience that I have to maintain two different worlds or two different cultures as a child. Since the first day I stepped a foot in Sweden, I have to try to maintain those difficulties and those differences, because it's huge. The European culture, the Swedish culture, and the African culture, and the Ugandan culture. That's I think was the biggest challenge for me as a child, and not only for me, even for my siblings. But I think in psychology we call it the adult child problematic, if I can translate it. If any family has some kind of difficulties, because I think every immigrant families, when they come to a new country, they start with struggle. You have to learn the language, you have to get in society. Maybe you had a different way of life, and then you move everything, and then you start to anew, and then it affects your children. And every child takes different roles, and my role was I was the rebel. I tried to be or to create something on my own. My brother became the good child, the one who is, because
the darling at home.
yes. So we had two different roles, and I think my role was, because I was so explosive. It was easy to, okay, this child, you have to discipline him. He has to be more focused, has to be more open, has to be more disciplined, and they disciplined me. Not only just my parents, because every adult used to discipline me in a different way. And I think the other Ugandans or the other friends I grew up with, they learned that in early age. If we do something, we can only blame it on Fahad, because nobody will believe him. So that's why I said I was disciplined a lot. Sometimes maybe I had to be disciplined, but sometimes it was falsely accused. Yes, and they knew it.
Maybe your profile or your lifestyle and previous experiences always implicated you. When something was told at home, it was easier to think it's Fahad.
Yes, exactly. Because I was a restless soul. I couldn't sit still. I had to try everything. If we got some new toys, if I got a new toy and my brother got a new toy, he played with this toy. I was the curious one. I wonder what's inside that toy, and I opened it and I broke it. And my parents said, "I wanna go, into." But I think I was curious, not to destroy it, just to be a stubborn child. I was curious, what's inside this? How can you maintain that? So I had, yes. And I think in school, when I brought that energy, because of the teachers could not discipline me in the way they do in Uganda, I think that
Mm,
it was easier for them to call my parents. And my
mm.
parents, in that essence, they had to work. They don't have time to come to school every day, just to sit in my room. And that was a difficulties for me.
And do you feel okay now that you've gone past this? Do
Mm.
you feel did you have any particular regrets for being that type of child of a child at home?
Uh, no, maybe not particular regrets, but I think I wish I had someone just to listen to me to say what is really going on. I think that but no particular regrets, because I think that made me who I am today. I'm still that person that wants to drive some to
Okay.
start. I still have that, but I make it in a. I try to help others instead. They maybe
Oh,
have similar difficulties, and I try to help them.
oh, because I was just wondering if you ever sit there and wonder and feel remorse for having been this very naughty child who gave your parents extra work to raise you.
No, but I also think that if they understood the Swedish way of doing things, I think they would be understanding me better. Because I can give you an example. In my first, all of my first school year until I was from the kindergarten up to the ninth grade before I started junior high, I was always in a smaller group. I They always put me in a smaller group with other children with the same problems. I have so little experience to sit in a big classroom like the other else. I always went to a different school or a different that and a different that, and all the children I went with had the similar problems.
Okay, okay. Okay, did they also at school regard them as problems, or you being in a way having extra energy, like you put it? How did the school perceive this? Did they perceive it as a problem, or
At first, they perceived it as a problem, but the big schools, because every child when you live in a certain area, automatically they register in a certain school. When I start in that school, or that kindergarten, after 3 months or 6 months, they say, we cannot handle these children. We have to move him to a smaller school, to a smaller group. But in those smaller groups, I think that those teachers, those experts, had better understanding of dealing with me than in the big schools. In the big schools, I think they saw me as a problem. But in the smaller groups, they saw me as, okay, there is something else that's going on. Because I think I was, yes, I was 10 or 11 years old when I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Mm,
And the school tried to explain it to my parents, and my parents from Uganda haven't ever
mm.
heard of the word ADHD. They said, this is nonsense. This is totally nonsense. We don't have that. You have to just focus, to be disciplined. This is the government's way of trying to put a label on you. So imagine, as a 10-year-old child in school, they say, you have this problem, we can help you with this certain of problems, you can learn to maintain with it. Even if your parents on there with some form of medication, it should help you to focus, to help you to not be so outgoing or aggressive. And we get home, they say, no, this is totally nonsense. Don't you ever buy into that. So to balance those words, it was hard.
Okay, but did they at some point accept to taking this, or to work as a team with the school? Because I want to imagine that this was a shock to them, but afterwards, is it something they came to terms with?
I think in some ways they worked with the school, because there was like, okay, you take him in that school. If they called, they said, okay, we know our child has a problems. They often believe the school more than they believe me.
Mm.
In some ways, they took in the school, but in other ways, they didn't. So it was very, very, very up and down in some areas. But in some areas, they knew that, okay, something, because I was the same at home. I couldn't sit still. So they knew that this was not just made up. But at home, they felt that maybe when he's at home, we can discipline him. But when we're not at home, at school, they don't discipline him as we think they should. That's why he reacts out. And the school said, no, we think there is another way to handle him because of we have discovered that he's diagnosed with ADHD. So no. So in some ways, yes, but I think in other ways, no. It was a culture difference.
Cultural differences.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Fad. Siba Abu Matovu, Gamba Tambula Muganda. Yes, we shall come to that. Fad, dio jakwete kutambula Muganda. Sunday, John Bosco, people are saying life in Sweden is so hard for immigrants. Keep that, note that somewhere, Fad, we will respond to that. Cynthia says Sunday, John Bosco, I think hard is relative, okay? Yes, giving it another perspective. But Fahad, note that you react on that later on. Okay. Yeah, okay. This whole experience, we are discussing your parents, the system, and you as an individual.
Yeah.
But now you're an adult. How do you plan to do differently as a parent? I mean, differently from what you felt the approaches to disciplining you were. How do you plan to parent differently?
Actually, because my experience working with the children and young adults in so many areas, and now I am a bit older than my parents were when they moved to Sweden, and I see other relatives having children. I think I would act differently in one essence, that try to listen to your children. That is a very important thing, because every child has its way of expressing itself, but sometimes when they behave badly, it's not just stubbornness or energies. There's something that they're trying to tell you. That thing I will do differently. But I will never forget the things my parents gave me, because what I see now, I can only speak in Sweden, but the generation of people in our generation raising children from immigrants, they try to do everything so differently, which means that I sometimes believe that they become friends with the children and not parents, because they're trying to do everything so opposite. You have to try to find that balance, because if you look at it, not every child has a different parent.
Yeah, sure.
By that means that when you have your first child, you are a different parent. Second child, you become a different parent. So every child has a different parent, even if they're from the same home, because you learn through experience. But I think also that our generation, they want to do differently, but it can go too much on the other side. So to find that balance, I think it's very important.
How often did you used to go back to Uganda in your childhood?
I went back, I think one time I went back in 98. I was in Uganda 98 for the whole summer.
That's after 8 years.
8 years, yes. I went back to 98 the whole summer. I was there in, I think, 3 months. And then I went back in 2005. And then I went back in 2012.
Okay. I see a margin of 8 years since you came. Then you went back after 7 years.
Yes.
Then you went back after another 7 years.
Yes.
How did you experience your motherland when you went back? Because these were really many years. How was the experience?
As an immigrant child, because here in Sweden, when you're an immigrant child, and we lived in an area, there was lots of immigrants. So we all had the same feeling that even if we have the passport is Swedish, we don't feel Swedish because we lived in an area. I think it was 92% of that area, over 12,000 people, were from different immigrant countries, from Somalia, Eritrea, Gambia, Uganda, Iraq, Iran. We were from all over the world, and we were not so many in that area from Uganda. But when I went back home, I felt, oh, this is my people, this is my relatives. But I don't know, but I experienced that they treat me differently in Uganda. They say, but you are Swedish, you live in Sweden now. And for me, I speak fluent Luganda, always have, in writing and in writing, reading, and speaking. But when I went back, my cousins and my brothers and sisters in Uganda, they start to speak English with me. And that annoyed me, because why don't you speak the same language I speak with you? Why do you want to treat me differently than the others? Because I am a Uganda, I can speak the Luganda with you. Why do you feel the need to speak English with me? And that actually annoyed me.
Okay. And okay, okay, I think it was a default setting for them.
Yes.
I think that
Yes.
so they welcome you with English. And did you respond in English, or you?
At first, I responded in English, but one told me, no. But the Mumu Luganda. Just speak Luganda, and they will stop eventually. Don't fall into that narrative that you don't speak Luganda. But the Mumu Luganda, you get Luganda, even if they speak English with you. So one told me that, and then I stick to. I only spoke Luganda in Uganda. I didn't want to speak English because I felt like I'm a Ugandan. But sometimes I can also put the responsibility on our parents going back, because our parents, when they take us back, in one way I understand them, but in another way, I don't think they realize how they affect the children, because our parents here, maybe they work 7 days a week, 12 hours a week, in 11 months, 10 months they work, they miss birthdays, they miss Christmas, they miss everything just to work. When they go back to Uganda, they want to relax. They want to feel like, okay, now I have worked 7 days a week, 12 hours work a day, just to go back. Maybe I have starting a business, maybe I want to do something. And when they go back, but sometimes they'll act like they're so much better than the Ugandans. And actually, I've seen it, and not parents at all. They behave like they're so powerful European coming to Uganda. In that way, they talk, they walk, they treat people. And, yes, and I don't think that they realize that people in Uganda, if they see them, oh, this is Oeburaya Ze or Mugaga Ze, they will start to treat the children differently. I don't think they realized it.
I believe, as we listen to people's stories, they're actually speaking to us, but we're also learning subconsciously from them. The fact that we are immigrants living here and we still have roots back home, maybe that is something to reconsider. Yes, you had this language issue where you wanted to express yourself as a Ugandan, and they were putting you somewhere, the level of the European. We've had guests here where we've discussed a topic of home, and the question was, what is home to you? Fahad, you having a Ugandan background and you're a Swedish by citizenship, what is home to you? Where do you feel home?
Growing up, I felt home in the village Husby, because the village Husby gave me the sense of home, because we were other immigrants, we understood each other. If I had, maybe sometimes we didn't, the treatment we had there, sometimes the neighbor knock on our doors, which is not common here in Sweden at all. Oh, we do have some free eggs we can have. We had that. And I considered Husby as a safe place as home growing up. Not so much Sweden, not so much Uganda, just because I've been in Uganda in my upbringing so few times. And perhaps when they saw me, but I was Swedish. No, you're Swedish, you're a European, and here they say you're an immigrant. So we built our own home, and then that was the village I grew up in.
Okay, growing up, it was Husby. Right
Yes.
now, what is home to you? I mean, where do you feel home at home?
Yes, now I feel at home at Sweden because I think I need to rediscover myself when I get children to go back to Uganda to build it from the next generation to make us as a family to feel like home.
Okay, thank you. I checked somewhere on your Facebook, and I saw that you're married.
Yes.
Yes, and you also your wife is Swedish.
Yes.
And am I curious to hear, as the way you sound like you are raised up in a typical Ugandan home.
Mm.
Was that you getting married to a Swedish? Did you at any one point in life have a dream that my wife should be either from this race, my wife should be this? Is it something you ever dreamt in life?
Yes, I thought about it, but the thing is, during the early 90s, we had you had Ugandan community because people lived all of the Stockholm, and we had the Ugandan community, and our parents tried so hard to connect with us that we should have an old community. Every Sunday we had some cultural teachers as where we learned to dance, where we learned to play the music, the background, and all of those things. But our parents, and I think it was a good meetup for them also to to exchange the hardships they went through in as an immigrants, adult immigrants. But they raised us all as brothers and sisters or cousins. So
With
for me, many of the people, Ugandan people growing up with me, we used to call ourselves, this is my cousin, or this is my sister, or this is my brother. So I think that's affected us because if I see that all the people growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, free Ugandan background, growing up in Sweden, there are not many that is Uganda with Uganda because we see our parents raised us to be one family. Ono muna Uganda, ono sister, ono Uganda. So I think I didn't see them in that way, even growing up. I was like, no, this is my cousin. No, this is my sister.
Okay, so you looked at these girls or ladies,
Yes.
more as cousins. With this kind of narrative, I mean, culture that on uncle, on auntie, so never and so by default, their children are cousins.
Yes, and still today, their parents, I still call them uncle and
auntie. Okay.
And we still call our ourselves like no cousin. If I introduce, and that was the issue. No, not the issue. That was the funny thing when I introduced my wife to my family, and I had to explain to her, okay, I have a family by blood, but I also have a family just related to have a background in Uganda. So when I say this is auntie or this is my cousin, we may not be cousins by blood, but we grew up as cousins. Or this is my uncle, this is my auntie, this is so.
Okay.
She was like,
now
in Swedish, she was like, but how can you call them cousins when you're not related? Yes, but we are related in culture, not in blood. That's how we grew up.
That's Africa.
Exactly.
You can have 1,000 uncles, 1,000 aunties who you don't even relate to, but anyway, that's.
And I think it became more important here in Sweden because we only had a very small group of people from Uganda in a big country like Sweden. That was, then it became more important for us to keep that culture, that feeling of being a Ugandan.
And now looking ahead of time as a parent, is this something? What do you think of this? Is this something you'd love to carry on, or you don't see it resonating with your parenting approach?
I think it's important for me to teach as a parent. This is my ground. This is my foundation. This is where I come from. This is who built me. This is who I am, and this is this is part of your blood and your legacy also. But maybe I would be more cautious to call a friend's daughter or a friend's son, this is your cousin, because who knows when they grow up? Maybe that's the that's the in God's plan that they will be meeting and be married. I think I would be more thoughtful that no, this is a friend, and it's okay if you, when you grow up, to feel like you see her or you see him in a different way. That thing I would be more cautious, but it would be important for me to teach as a parent what is my background and what will be my legacy to them. Mm.
Yes, you say, yeah, it's good. It's really good to open up and tap into those stories, because there are those common mistakes we do subconsciously, and usually we don't mean bad.
No,
it's usually for the better, but you don't know how much how deep a ditch you're putting your child into.
Yes.
So earlier on, you hinted on your experience when you went back to Uganda, which to me I perceived as some sort of double life.
Yeah.
That you, while living in Sweden as an immigrant, or
yeah,
when you go to Uganda, or you're ready. So how has this affected you as an individual?
It affected me as an individual because in some point of life, when you start to become a young adult, and you start in your teenagers, you start to explore, you start to realize, start to think about future, and in that point, I think me or many of us felt sometimes rootless, which means that we tried in a different way. There was one part of my life I wanted to be like a gangster because I saw a movie. And another part I wanted to be a football player, and another part I wanted to hang out only with the Arab guys. And I think, and another. There was also a time I came home because in our family we are Muslims. And I came home because I was in a mosque and they tried to convince me to know what you're doing is wrong. And I came home, I told my parents, you are raising me wrong. This is not the Muslim way. This is not that. And actually, they sat me down and they said, this is a very dangerous road to go. And today I'm thankful because some of those ruthless immigrants in our area, actually, I heard a time later they went to Syria to become ISIS. So I think because of this lack of grounding, it's so easy to take advantage of the immigrants' kids who feel that they don't belong. Or the here, but or you where in Uganda, in those critical ages, you can be taken advantage of in a very bad way.
I'm a parent having immigrant children. I'm an immigrant, first generation, and having children, second generation.
Yeah.
What you're expressing right now, I'm not sure if I'll do better. But how could you help me navigate this as a parent?
Yes. First of all, to all, because I'm also first generation immigrant, and many of us are first generation, and I want to speak especially from Africa, but also particularly Uganda, because in psychology there is a term that is called generational trauma. If you experience some trauma, if you don't acknowledge that, it can pass on to the next generation. And you look at the history of Uganda since the independence, we have had so many difficulties and problems so people born in 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and maybe 90s. That's 2 generations of trauma, political instability, civil war, and then in the 90s, the AIDS epidemic, which means that there are 2 generations of Ugandans that have seen and had some difficulties. If you don't acknowledge it, because what I mean by generation trauma, I mean that they grew up in such an instability to try, and their instinct was we have to survive in one way or another way. We have to see the difficulties, which they don't have. Like in Sweden, Sweden haven't had a war for over 200 years. They don't have that generational trauma. which means that as a parent, you have to acknowledge that if you come from a country that has so long generational trauma, you have to be acknowledged that, and you see that, okay, now you have a children, you can do differently with the next generation because you don't have the same trauma. It's not so you are Ugandan, you speak Uganda with your child, with children, I hope, and they understand. But it's not the end of the world if that children wants to learn another language or wants to explore themselves. But for us growing up, we spoke only Luganda to our parents because that was, you have to speak Luganda. Don't forget where you came from, but you never forget where you came from if you are open and transparent. That's why I think as a parent, you have to acknowledge that we have a generational trauma back many, many generations, which we have to acknowledge and we have to try to break.
Well, thank you. Thank you for opening that up. More in line with generation traumas. There is this clip here I landed on somewhere. You could help me put a word or two on it.
Okay.
Okay, he is right here. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Help me put a word or two to that clip.
Yeah.
Who are those people in that clip? And when was that?
I think it was in maybe 95 or 96. Or even early 90, somewhere between 94 and 96. They made a documentary in Sweden that they called Africans in Sweden. And they took from Gambia and Uganda, and they interviewed people, and they went back to Uganda and they interviewed so many persons of what is your difficulties in Sweden as an African, and they showed us that I think it was it was an organization, OUSSB. It has been celebrating 10 years, and I was up there to perform because it was. That's why I said every Sunday we had that culture studies, that we learned the traditional dance and we performed. Often we performed in those gatherings.
How old were you by then?
Maybe 7 or 8 years old, I think.
Okay, and this was, at least I saw it was some sort of organized. And were they only Ugandans or it was multicultural?
No, it was Uganda arranged it, but I think they invited the Swedish also to invite us so they can see and explore our culture and learn from it.
Okay, for me, as you're speaking of your experiences and how many of these things are tied to your upbringing, when I saw that clip, it again rose more curiosity on knowing, okay, how grounded have you been when it comes to culture? Earlier on, Musajja Mabumatovia wanted you to walk like Muganda. Is it something you're ready to do now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Fahad Luyombya. Neddira Lugave era ndi Muganda. Ndi musajja wa Kabaka. Ndi muzzukulu wa Sheikh Muhammad Semakula eyali mufti ow'e Butambala, era ndi muzzukulu wa Haji Muhammad Nkangabwa yakuzibwa Kasaayi. Ndi mutabani wa Mwami Luyombya era yeddira Lugave, era ndi mutabani wa mukyala Mary Luyombya eyeddira empeewo.
Abumatovu okyabanja. Okay. Now the two can, I think the two relate. How have you been able to maintain your language despite you being that long in Sweden and living typical as a Swedish generally?
I think the first thing that it was my first language was Luganda, and when we went to Sweden, because we spoke Luganda at home, and I think that our parents maintained that it was important that we speak Luganda. When I spoke with my brother or my sister, we spoke in Swedish. Maybe we had some arguments and we had some disagreement, but when we turned Fahadi Jango, Wanji Mami, we switched.
Mm.
And also those gatherings, those culture studies helped us, because many of our friends, which I call cousins and brothers and sisters, who grew up here.
Your cousin friends.
Yes, who were born here and grew up here. They didn't speak so good Luganda, but because of those gatherings, because of those now they also speak Luganda. They can go to Uganda without parents to explore Uganda, to take the children. I think it was those gatherings, those were so important for us to maintain Uganda.
Speaking of gatherings, were they particular gatherings for all Ugandans in Sweden, or these were organized just to boost culture?
No, it was. I think I don't have the. They had so many gatherings from different gens, but it was all Ugandans in Sweden.
Yes, because actually, why I'm asking about this, we organize similar events here in Norway.
Yeah.
And we oftentimes find a challenge where some of us who are non-Uganda speakers would love us to hold the whole session in English.
Yeah.
And you understand them because the invitation is to all Ugandans in Norway. But again, we also want our children to tap into this heritage. Of course, those who embrace Uganda. And unfortunately, those who would love their kids to speak their mother tongue, maybe let me say any other language apart from Uganda, there haven't been maybe those channels. So I'm just wondering how, during your time in Sweden, how that balance was maintained. So when you made for these gatherings, was there a structured arrangement for you basically to improve on your culture and language? Of course, let us leave our own culture, because culture will be expressed in dances and songs. But was there anything streamlined just for the language to see that you improve your language?
No, for me, for the language, we had every Sunday we had a radio channel, Uganda Radio. I think it was called Voice of Uganda, if I'm not very wrong, and it was put on every Sunday between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, that we tuned in, that people could go there, read stories, read some. And during my stubborn areas, my mother thought maybe...
You're stubborn, Fahad. During your stubborn Fahad.
Yes, during the stubborn Fahad, my mother thought maybe if he can go there and try to be the background man to put on, maybe we can find something for him to do even on weekends. And it started up like that. But then they wanted to have a program for the children, and then they wanted me to have a reading on science, and that's how I learned to write and read Luganda, because every week I had to present a show, and my mother wrote it in Uganda. We read it, we tried, we read it, and so I think that helped me a lot in writing or reading. I think I do better than an average Swedish growing up in Uganda because of that period. Actually, it helped me a lot.
Wow. Credit goes to your mom and dad for this very hard work.
Yeah.
Because I know this is really hard. I'm having a 5-year-old, but I can feel it on our nerves how hard it is.
Oh,
to teach a child their mother tongue in a foreign land.
yeah.
Yes, and you as a parent, you have a wife who is Swedish, you are Ugandan. Which
Yeah.
kind of language, which language do you guys plan to use or to teach your children?
I have been very clear that that I want them to know both languages. I will try to do like my parents did. That's why I meant that sometimes because of the hardship, we try to do so much different than our parents did. But we forgot also to do the things our parents did do to that gave us the foundation. So in at home, I will only try to speak Luganda with the children, as my parent did.
Okay. Okay, is this something, is this the I in you or even the wife is in agreement with
No, you
this?
see, no, this is not. This is something we together are agreed on. And I
Yes.
tried to teach my wife Uganda. She asks,
Mhm.
and now we are in the state that I tried to teach her Maganda, and she's improving actually.
Eh,
Yes.
Thank you so much to you watching us, Fahad Luyombya, who came to Sweden when he was 3 years old. It's so very enriching to us as a Ugandans or in general immigrants to see a child who came at 3 to this day, after 35 years, they are still embracing their language and culture. Credit goes to the parents, but also to you as well, because not every student passes exams. So the credit goes to you, but also a lesson to us who are also having children. Maybe there are echoes of this that we should learn. A kind reminder to you all living in Norway, particularly you immigrants. Tomorrow is the last day of voting. Kindly find time and go and vote. This is a privilege you have. It's a right. But in the broader picture, it's an obligation. If you hope to demand for any sort of services from those political leaders, I think it's only prudent for you to be part of the voting session. I think it doesn't count that much for you to complain outside the circle when you cannot contribute to those leaders you want to put accountable for what they haven't done. Fahad, you living as an immigrant, the way you sound a very active and hands-on immigrant here and there. Your life in Sweden, are there any particular achievements you to this day feel very proud of as an immigrant?
Yes. In 2008, I won an award, a prize for this the year the social worker of the year in Sweden. So I got a prize, and it was for no, not the prime minister, but the integration minister who came and gave me that award, that prize. So that thing I'm very proud of. And
But
I have been
social worker,
arranged. Huh?
sorry to cut you short, social worker of the year in the entire country.
Yes, in 2008.
Wow. Yeah, you are still carrying on.
Yes, and they did a ceremony because the things that I was doing to try to improve the neighborhood I was living in, because the neighborhood we lived in, it was a highly immigrant neighborhood. It was high unemployment among parents. They come also from different culture, different countries, trauma, and still today that area we have higher related criminality, drugs, and those problems. And I tried to do a thing to improve the area, and then they awarded me for that
That's,
encouragement and hard work.
mm, that's really great. It's your award, but you being an immigrant, winning
Yeah.
such an award, it speaks volumes to us all, wherever we are. Thank you for the good work. And something about your profession.
Oh.
What inspired you to take on that line of work?
Well, what inspired me was because of the difficulties, because of I was, as I said, I was disciplined a lot, and I was a searching child, tried to find myself, and I felt that growing up, we didn't have the same type of role models that I try to be now. We didn't have so many that grew up in our generation. We were that generation that grew up and became the adults today. We didn't have that. Maybe that helped me a lot because, as I said, in at home they viewed me this way. We have to discipline. At school they viewed me that way, and I was in between. And now today I try to be that person that has seen both of the worlds and can talk to the young adult to say, I understand you, I hear you, but this is not the right path to go. You can succeed as an immigrant or you can succeed as an individual only if you try to believe in yourself. That's the I think that was inspired me. And also that was a challenge for me to present it to my parents because I know when we left Uganda, we had an uncle. He had already told us what we want to be. I should be an engineer. My brother should be a pilot, and they wanted us to be so academically because they wanted us to succeed. But for me, I was never the guy who was could sit still and become an academic. I wanted to be active. And then I didn't struggle in school, but I did quite enough just to pass. But that was not okay in our family. You have to be the top, top, top. That was and then when I presented it to my parents, they said, "What's that career? Why don't you take a career that was like more sustainable? What are you going to do with
Why
that?
don't you take a serious, a presentable career?
Why don't you take it seriously?" And then, as I said, me being me as a rebel, I went to my path because I believed in it, and I said, "No, I'm going to go my way. Nothing is going to stop me." And then I think I want. I found myself in that way, but I have seen so many that didn't find themselves. People I grew up with, people who became my friends. Some of them are in prison. Some of them maybe are dead. And I wanted to be that person that, if one people can look and say, okay, he made it. How did he do to inspire? That's why I think I love this my profession so much.
I love it when you say that I wanted to be, I wanted to. Yes, it was that was then that when you were starting on that career, or maybe even taking education in that line.
Yeah.
Right now, as we speak, you feel that you made a right decision?
Yes.
Feel that you're seeing the light you opted for?
Yes, I do. Still today, I started 2008, and still today, I'm still happy to do what I do. There's not a single day that I don't feel that. I feel like I'm in the right place. So yes, I still do.
As a very active child, I'll try to borrow your words.
Yes.
As a very active child growing up in a foreign land, having parents who are very grounded in their culture and tradition, and of course, like you said, those structures and principles that we cannot sweep under the carpet,
Yes.
that we borrow from our parents. Are there any particular challenges you faced while growing up?
Yes. The first challenge I can say as an immigrant is that, yeah, I think in our family, both on my mother and father's side, there was not so many that had left for Europe during the 80s or the 90s, which means that they went with the pressure as, okay, now you are having it good, you have to provide. And for them to provide, which means that we didn't grow up having having the life we have today. We had to struggle with every corner of a cent, just to make through the day. And I think many, as I speak now, I think many can relate. On that pressure, mind you, you have a whole family back home you have to provide and to help. And that was the challenge because we didn't do the typical European stuff. We didn't go on vacation. We didn't do anything because we just had the bare minimum to eat, to sleep, and to have some easy clothes and to go to school, and maybe to do maybe a activity. We played football, me and my brother, and my sister played basketball. But that was the life, and I think that there was so much focus for us to succeed because they didn't want to give us the life they didn't have. But along the way, I think they forgot that you have some children that needs you now, that you can help, that you can give something them, because you cannot take back those years.
Mm.
That was the challenge. The other challenge was usually exactly that I said, that I was disciplined a lot. And sometimes I was disciplined when it wasn't my fault. And in that sense, I felt sometimes very misunderstood, because if you're the child who always be disciplined, and you have the other growing up with you who can blame you for things, and nobody believes you, you start you end up not wanting to, you doubt yourself. I have one example during those years of the culture. That was an example, and it was, we were in that we had the same locale, we had the same place that we used to go every Sunday we had the college. Sometimes they had meetings, sometimes we children played, sometimes we trained to dance in the Uganda or to play drums. And when we were living there, and I don't know who did it, I don't know what happened, but one of the toilets started to burn, and they put out the fire. I was blamed for that fire, and it wasn't me. And I think to this day, many believe that I tried to burn everybody inside to play with the matches, but it wasn't me. And just recently, my mother told me that the child who had did it, she met him at the party 30 years after, and he admitted. He said, "No, no, it wasn't Fahad. It was actually I did it." But when he got blamed, I stayed quiet because I knew he would be in trouble.
Mm.
So I think maybe still today there are so many people that believe that I was the one who played with the matches and tried to burn it, but I was innocent, and I tried to explain, and I was so disciplined for something I didn't do. And it felt so good that my mom told me, "Yeah, I met that kid. He's grown up now. He told me it was him. It wasn't you." And I was like, "That's what I've been telling you for 30 years. For 30 years, I've been telling you that, but nobody believed me." So that was also a difficulty for me, because when you act out, you're energetic, you can also easily get blamed.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
It sounds really, really touching. And for me, I would actually drive a question around this. That now you not being believed, this goes way beyond your parents, but maybe even the so-called village that
Yeah.
raises a child.
Mm.
Any words to anyone listening? Might be this village, it might be a parent, it might be because maybe these are the mistakes we regularly
Yeah.
keep rotating from generation to generation, or from sector to sector, and not realizing how much people get affected. Lucky enough, you sound like you moved on past that.
Yes.
But how many souls out there still hold grudges and anger over such wrong perceptions or accusations? Any words from your experience to the general public?
Yes, from my experience, like I said before, no child had the same parents,
Mm.
which means that when you get, that's one way, and the other way is that children are different. Like I said before, sometimes they express, maybe they want to feel seen, maybe they want to just be appreciated, maybe they just want to do, just to see them as children. They express them in a different way. Sometimes I can talk from my experience. It would have helped me if somebody just say, "How are you? Why are you so outgoing? Why do you want to open this one and look inside? What's your curiosity?" Not just "umano na you know itu." What's your curiosity? Maybe I could have explained to them. Yes, I'm so curious. I want to see what's under this remote. Okay, this child is very curious. Maybe we could find him something to be curious about, and not just being disciplined. Every children has its way to express themselves in different ways. Some of them, if I can compare to my brother, I don't think my brother always got the attention that he should have had. But for him, because I was the one, the school called, the parents called. I was the one, my parents were always, Fahad, he's doing something that, I think in a way he was neglected. And how did he express himself? He tried to be the good ones, the high press, the high grader, the high one. But I don't think that he did that for himself. He did that to show his parents that, look, I'm also one of the children that you have to see, because you take so much, you give so much focus to Fahad because of he does those things. And I felt like, why does he always get that credit? Why does he? But I think we needed our attention in different ways. Me growing up and the experience and the knowledge I have today, I can see now that my brother probably did most of those things just to get the attention. Good work. How is yours? How was your day? What do you do at school? And I felt that, okay, they only see him for the good things and don't see me for the bad things. But if you switch that, but maybe in 1 week they have been speaking or listening or worrying about me because of the things I did. Every child has its way of expressing themselves. And you have to try to find, as a parent, why do they express how they do? Because of my brother was the high grader. He was the good one. He took care of me and my sister. Doesn't mean that he always was happy. Maybe he did that just to get the attention.
Yes, thank you so much, Fahad, for opening up your story. Like we always say, that it's very good to let yourself learn from experience. But that is your experience you're speaking about. But also, it's, I think, wiser to learn from other people's experiences. As you say, let a child do this. For me, I'll take it personally that you're speaking to me. I have 3 daughters. You're speaking to me that when I'm looking at my daughters, I need to look at them as individuals, not as a basket of children. We shall take a very quick break and come back shortly. But I just want to remind you that Vienna Farm Lodge, it's a holiday home. Their website is viennafarmlodge.com, as it's been there. It's a place somewhere in Uganda where when you tap their website, there is so much you will learn from them. But I just want to remind you that it's a place which will give value to your money. Are you Ugandan living in the diaspora, or you already living in Uganda and you love a place where you get a 3-in-1? Look no other, Vienna Farm Lodge. Visit their website on viennafarmlodge.com, as it's pinned on the website. Want to remind you, Ugandans living in Norway, that on the 11th of October, we shall be having our independence celebrations. Independence falls on the 9th as usual, but we shall have our celebrations on the 11th of October. And before that, we shall have an Independence Cup, where we shall be having 4 teams: Uganda, Sudan, Ghana, and Zimbabwe. And all these teams afterwards, they will be invited for a dinner to dine with us. So mark off those dates to be at least, if you miss the football, the Independence Cup, you won't miss the party. Find something to may help you at least find a way of bonding and having moments with your fellow countrymen, or even friends of Uganda. They may not necessarily be Ugandans. We shall take a very quick break and come back to take the last segment of this show. Euroforum, stay tuned.
Welcome to Euroforum UG, where we address Ugandans from Europe, USA, Asia, Africa, Australia, and all over the globe. We share experiences, opinions, and expertise on current affairs, educative lifestyle, religion, and family matters. Follow, subscribe, and like our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Euroforum UG. You can also join our live shows every weekend on our social media platforms. For more information, visit our social media platforms or email us at euroforumug@gmail.com or WhatsApp us on +4740 574040. Euroforum UG, communicating with peers. Welcome to Euroforum UG, where we address Ugandans from Europe, USA, Asia, Africa, Australia, and all over the globe. We share experiences, opinions, and expertise on current affairs, educative lifestyle, religion, and family matters. Follow, subscribe, and like our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Euroforum UG. You can also join our live shows every weekend on our social media platforms. For more information, visit our social media platforms or email us at euroforumug@gmail.com or WhatsApp us on +4740 574040. Euroforum UG, communicating with peers. Welcome to Euroforum UG, where we address Ugandans from Europe.
Yes, we are back to take our last segment of this conversation, tapping into Fahad Luyombya's story, where he's sharing on his life experiences in Sweden. I know many of these experiences are speaking not only to those living in Sweden, but also to many others living in the diaspora. Fahad, as among other things, he has told us here, he has won an award of being the best social worker of the year in 2008. That was awarded by the Minister of Integration. That should speak so much of how integrated he is and how social he is as an individual. But
Yes.
we've heard of part of the challenges you faced while growing up, but these have been more domestic. Now let us take it to the community or generally the Swedish society. Any particular challenges as an immigrant that you faced?
Yeah, I think I always felt that I had to achieve double as much to have the same position as anybody in Sweden that are typically Swedish. I feel that sometimes they doubt me because of my background, or I'm an immigrant, and I have to prove them wrong. That is very common in the society, and sadly, the last decades in Sweden and in the West world, they have been so restricted to the immigrants, and I think that we are so many immigrants, not Ugandans, but immigrants all over those places that have done so good, and they try to point us out as the problems of those countries because a small population doesn't behave good in different ways, and that is also a bigger challenge.
Okay. So as I understand, a struggle to prove a point, a struggle to occupy space.
Yes.
Yes, and how has this affected you? Because either way you did it, but how has it affected you?
Yeah, it affected me because we have been dealing with this since we moved to Sweden, and I've seen how my parents have struggled, and I think that I just had it so common. It was more a challenge than a giving up. It had become more a challenge because, as I said, maybe I don't have the generational trauma like my parents, my grandparents from Uganda did, but I have the generational trauma to see the parents that moved here, not only mine, but other Ugandan parents that moved here, lived on a bare minimum and tried to get in society and didn't get maybe the job, maybe the opportunities. And some of them tried by studying, some of them tried to work and they didn't get those opportunities. And that was our generational trauma that we have to break. Okay, we see how you treat them, then we have to find our way in another direction to go in those rooms or those boards. So that's maybe that generational trauma we've faced.
Okay, though I want to loop this challenge to this question here. Oh, actually, it was a statement which maybe someone wished that you put something on it. People are saying that life in Sweden is so hard for immigrants. Now that you're saying you're tying generational traumas to how your parents or your people in your community or network worked hard to penetrate the job market or something.
Yeah.
Does this justify the statement?
Yeah, but also I think that the problem with Sweden in particular, that Sweden for many, many years was so open to take people in. So Sweden has most of the time was the most open country to take people in war zones, in difficulties. But Sweden have actually failed to integrate them into society, which meant that even if people, like, I know there are so many people that I know, maybe that you know, that feel that, okay, I live in Uganda, life in Uganda is so hard, I am educated, I want to do something for myself, I want to try my best. They come to Sweden, they come in, and in Sweden they don't get the opportunity, they don't get the job. Maybe they can be in a zone maybe for so many years between, just not get the chance to express, to create something for them. And then instead of helping the country, they become a burden for the country. And then when the Swedish economy has dropped in the last decade, they have been done, then the original Swedes, they start to blame. This is because of the immigrants. But there are so many. There is a saying actually that say that Sweden has the world most highly educated taxi drivers. This was saying for over 30 years, because there are so many highly educated, and all the taxi drivers, 95% are immigrants. They come to Sweden, they try to do something for themselves, they don't get the opportunity. Oh, go and drive taxi. You can compare it like Uganda. When you don't have something to do, you buy a border. It's the same thing in Sweden. You go, you drive the taxi. That's why there is a saying. Maybe they jokingly, but there is some truth in that joke.
Some truth in it, definitely.
Taxi drivers in the whole world.
Yeah, okay. And these struggles to penetrate or get decent jobs, are they exclusive to just immigrants, or you have experience with native Swedish who are also struggling the same way?
Yes, but I think because of, like me or you or some of the first generation immigrants, we have to, in Sweden, the best possible way to make it in Sweden actually is to get some connections. It doesn't matter, actually, to be the truth, it doesn't matter how good of grades, how good results you have, but if you have the right connections, you can get a foot in here or a foot in here, you know someone. That's why the network building is so important in Sweden. But if you come as a first generation immigrant, how can you don't have any connections. That's why you drive taxi. Now, as me growing up in Sweden, I have started to get some connections. Now it means that the next generation can maybe lean on me or my brother or my friend or my cousin. So we're starting now to build a network that our parents that moved here didn't have. That's why the native Swedish, maybe they don't have the same difficulties, because if I fail at school, I'm a native Sweden, maybe my mother knows someone he works with that needs something, and that's the only network. Connection is the most important thing in Sweden. And that's what I mean, that's how we try to penetrate. We try to go into those rooms, get those connections to show that, okay, now people know in Sweden, because of my award, I am a good social worker, which means now I have built a platform of a good social worker, which means that if I have someone who has been studying that and contact me, I can go good for them. I say, this is someone I know. This is someone you can give that person a chance. Maybe he can give another one a chance. That's how we are starting now to penetrate that. But it took another generation.
Thank you. As for you, how hard or easy was it to make it to where you are now? Because where you are, I want to tie it to this award. Because I mean, we are talking of an award of being the best social worker in Sweden. You're talking about Sweden.
Yes.
With its might and
Yeah.
How was your journey to where you are?
My journey was it was a journey. It was a challenge, of course. When I got the award, my boss at that time was Swedish. I I don't think she actually wanted me to get that one because she thought maybe there is another one who deserves it more. And I know afterward that she had, when they did the voting, that she tried to influence that maybe another one should win it. Why is Fahad? Fahad was the one in that community in Husby we knew that was the outspoken, the one who was fighting in schools. Why should he win? So it was a challenge in that essence.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a challenge, but
Yeah.
how did you climb the ladder to where you are? You know, as we tap into your story and many others,
Mm.
we want people, wherever they are, because there are these, stories which
Yes.
some people are authentic,
Mm.
but there are also stories best guided by hearsay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tosobola kukola kino, tosobola kukola
Mm,
kino.
mm,
When we
mm.
get you who has done something, we
Mm.
need to zoom in and know how did you get there.
I did get there by actually learning the system I live in and how to best exploit it, but not stop to believe in myself. When I tried to do it like an immigrant, just to go in, to be open, to say things, then I learned that okay, they're waiting just for one mistake and they can do. But if you learn the system, you're in a new country. Okay, this is the system how it works. Sometimes you have to play the back to learn to start to observe, and then you can move forward. I think that was the most important because when I was young and I tried to do it by force. In Sweden, they don't fight you back; they just wait for you, and then if you just wait for you to one mistake and then they try to tear it down. And then I learned someone told me that it actually a Swedish person who I work with told me that you have to slow down. In Sweden, we don't like the foregoing outspoken if you don't have to prove yourself. You have to slow down. You have to learn how we do things. You have to gain their trust. You have to learn the system, and then slowly by slowly you get to the ladder. And then when you're on top of the ladder, then you can try to make that change. But you cannot come in with this immigrant energy, Uganda energy, to straightforward. He told me actually in Kafaito, and then I thought about it. I said, okay, maybe that's so. And he said something I will never forget. And I said, but I was born here. I was. I know Swedish fluently. I studied here. What's the problem? And then he said something. He said, okay, reverse it. If I came to Uganda and tried to fundamentally change without knowing how you do things, how would the Ugandans react? I said, oh, maybe you won't even make it to the airport. Exactly. But in Sweden, we don't react. And this is the same wherever you go. You have to do it their way at the first to try, then you can make the fundamental change. That's how I learned. And that was a lesson I took with me by heart.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it that you deepen it. Thank you. As you watching us, we are almost getting to the end of today's show. And okay, some feedback here. We are almost getting to the end of today's show, and I want to invite you to chip in with any sort of comments. There might be questions, feedback, but also to share your experience where you are. You might be actually living in Sweden. You might want to add a word or two to what Fahad is sharing, but you might as well be sharing an experience from another country where you live. We come here to iron sharpens iron. What you have in your basket, let it out so we can also tap from it as he taps or pours into ours. Thank you all, and I want to remind you all that we are on YouTube and Facebook. We are currently live. A very kind reminder to you all, Facebook is our main brand as Euro Forum. But recently, Facebook enacted a policy where live videos after 30 days are taken down. So our humble request is that you watch more of these videos on YouTube, where we are sure that decades down the road, we shall be able to tap into these amazing stories. Thank you, Fahad.
Yeah.
Yes, we are opening up on your challenges. There is a very common belief that regardless of how still the ocean is, it's bubbling underneath. That
Yeah.
regardless of how calm the society might seem, there is racism.
Yes.
Regardless of how much they might pretend, there is racism. Have you experienced any cases of racism in Sweden?
Yes, many times in different ways. Maybe not the straightforward racism like in we also have racism in Uganda. We talk ill about the Banyoro, the Banyankore, about Ugandas, but that is another thing because there we are more straightforward. In Sweden, they don't they are not. When we moved to Sweden in the 90s, they had that racism parades and people were fighting at immigrants, but that thing faded away. And now the racism, now they're politics. Now they start to, they're the bankers who don't permit you loan. They are the employers who don't employ you. So that their racism is in another way than it was back in the 90s, because they learned that okay, if we treat them like this, they would start to rebel against us. So the racism is very much different.
Have you, okay, those cases where you've experienced them, have they been personal or seeing them from a distance?
Both, actually.
Both. And for those cases where they've been personal, how have you responded to that? Have you succumbed? Have you fought back? What has been your reaction?
In my younger ages, I fought back, but then I became into this. I fought back with rage, with anger. Sometimes I fought with fists, but then I became. I was this. I became the stereotypical they wanted. They provoked me. I fight back. They say, oh, "Look, this is the black man we told you. He's aggressive." Now I try to fight back with calmness, but with words. I do not accept. We had actually it was when I was new at my work today. It was me and another guy from Eritrea, and we had an older employer. He's not there. An older employer, and in Sweden back in the 60s and 70s, those chocolate balls they call it and nigger balls back in Sweden, but they have changed it now. And he wanted to provoke me and my colleague who was from Eritrea. And he said, I've been saying this since I was young, but I will never stop. And we told him that, with all due respect, you will not say that in front of us because it will not end good. But we were calm, we were not aggressive. And I think he saw that, okay, even if we are calm, even if we speak with you with respect, we will not tolerate the way you speak. If you do it at home, that's your problem. But at work, we will not accept that you call in that matter. But we did it in a calm, sophisticated way, which led to all the other colleagues backed us up. But I think that if you have reacted then like you wanted to, aggressively, then we will have to fall into that stereotype.
Lovely. You see, we like I said, iron sharpens iron. As people speak, we take notes, but we don't just take notes. We act on what we learn from them. There is being discriminated and feeling discriminated.
Yeah.
Any words to any immigrant out there who feels discriminated?
Yes, my words is don't let them just brush it away. If you feel discriminated, then there is a discrimination. But they try to no, this is don't let them brush it away, because we know that if you feel discriminated, then you're discriminated. Why should you feel that way? There is something that you feel and that no, this is not right. But if you bring it up and they try to brush it off, don't let them. Because why do you feel discriminated if you're not discriminated? Because they try to do it in a way, because like I said, many people that had to change names just to get a job interview, that's discrimination. But they don't know, this is not, we looking at but it is true. I have school friends I grew up with, they changed names because of just to get an interview to a job
Okay,
place.
now for me, that I perceive it as systematic
Yes,
discrimination.
yes.
But there is, okay, now the way I perceive your piece of advice
Mm.
applies to race discrimination
Yeah.
at a level of individuals.
Yes.
So how should people navigate systematic racism or discrimination? Because this, you're not dealing with an individual.
No.
You cannot brush it off because it's
Yes.
there. It's systematic.
Yes. Like I said, in discrimination, when they discriminate you, they do it so subtle, so subliminally. You have to always doubt yourself. But if you, that's an individual. If you feel it, then you are discriminated, no doubt. So don't let them there. But in the systematic racism, that is a bigger picture. That is a long term. That is something that you have to just don't give up. There is not all in Sweden. There are 10 million, maybe 1.5 million immigrants. There are 8 other millions native Swedes. Not all of them are, but there is some. But don't let them view your world of every Sweden, of every Swedish person. And I think Swedish as an example. That's how they have succeeded to view us immigrants as a problem. One do a bad thing, we all get punishment. Don't do the same. But the systematic, we have to address it. We have to talk about it. Like in these forums, we have to exchange. Maybe someone applies for a job and he feels that it's systematic. Okay, I know someone. We have to try to build our own foundation to help each other to play their game, because we have the same opportunities now that we didn't have, because of we are learning the system. So there's systematic racism because we didn't know better back then. Now we know better. Now we can have a say. Now we can have a vote. Now we are in those boardrooms. Now we are in those. So, and it's our responsibility to try to help each other. As they help each other, we have to help each other to go. Maybe one in the boardroom. In 5 years, we are 10 in the boardrooms. In that way, we will erase the systematic, because now they sit on the most deciding places there. They are there sitting there. And if 1 or 2 of those 10 are systematic racism, it affects all of us. That's why we have to also try to sit at the same table as they do.
I often speak a lot of good about the Norwegian system.
Yeah.
But I'm also bold enough to spotlight the things that I feel don't go right.
Yeah.
But among the so many things I speak so proudly about, systems like child welfare system, and something very much in particular to do with child welfare, is maternity leave and paternity leave. To me, particularly paternity leave, I feel it's a gift the state offers to a child and a dad. I mean, imagine sitting home for 3 months and you're being paid to bond with your child. To me, that's a gift. Over to you, Fahad. Now, I mean, there is this side, the areas of improvement where we feel ABCD needs to be improved. But in your life in Sweden, if you're to paint Sweden to a new entrant in Sweden, the good things you feel make Sweden stand out.
Okay.
Point out with your pen.
Yes. Like you said, the parental system, the education system, the healthcare system is still good, but it has to improve. But education system in Sweden, whenever you want in your life, you can be whatever you want. You can be 40 years old and say, okay, I was an engineer, but now I want to study art. That's very good. You can be a criminal in prison for about when you are in over 10 years and come out and start fresh, and they give you that opportunity. and you can start fresh, you can change your life, and you can be successful. From a prisoner, you can be a lawyer. And sometimes, okay, there is discrimination, there is systematic racism, but we cannot be feel sorry for ourselves and not see the opportunities that you have in Sweden. Because, so, as I said, I have a colleague that was in prison for 10 years. Now he has his own YouTube channel. He gets awards from the king. So you can start fresh in Sweden whenever, or in Europe whenever you want, even if you have done some bad things. They have a so forgiving system that I don't see it in like African countries.
Now, you see, when we get moments like this to tap into people's stories, I always realize that people's stories should come in segments. But there is so much that we would love to tap into. As you ask, if someone mentions this and you want to deviate to that, but I'll be disciplined enough to stick on the track to make sure that in the next 10 minutes we are done. Fahad, generally speaking, what are those life lessons you've learned in your journey in Sweden? Ebintu byabera ne bagamba n'okikola nga tali wange kino tokolanga bwoti kino okolanga bwoti kino okola wanti. Just as we summarize, what are those life experiences you'd love to share with us?
Life experience I love to share.
Sorry, life lessons I meant.
Life lessons I want to share is that I moved to this country. My family chose to move to this country, which means I have to respect the country values. I cannot be in a country that trying, not by losing my culture, but I have to respect and accept the system. That's why I want to give you some very good credit on that. You are encouraging people to go to vote, because it's our responsibility to go to vote. Those countries we are coming from, we are rooted from, we don't have that opportunity. We don't have that chance. Why do we come here and not go to vote? I cannot understand. Not here. Even in Sweden, I speak with the young immigrants. Why don't you go vote? They don't listen to me. Okay, why did your parents fled here? So you can have that freedom to go to vote. Why don't you take the opportunity? Do you know how many from your origin country that wish they had that chance to go to affect who will be leader of your country, and you just ignore it? That's one of the things, that life lesson, that you have to respect the system, because the system, regardless what they tried, there is hardship, there is difficulties, there is for all of us, but it could be much worse. We could be in a war zone. We could be in other places that maybe our parents or our grandparents fled to give us the opportunities. And even here, even in difficulties, struggles, losses, you can always find a way to start over. Like I said, you can be a lawyer for 30 years, and the other 40 years, because you go to pension, you say, I'm tired of being a lawyer. Now I want to study art, or now I want to study music. And they give you that opportunity. And they take care of you. Why? So you don't have to get on the street. You can have some student loans. You don't get on the streets. Like in America, if you want to change your direction, it's much more difficult than in Sweden or Norway. You have a very healthcare system that is very safe. So that's my life lesson, that you have to respect and be grateful even with difficulties. Because I used to complain a lot about the Swedish system. I used to feel sorry for myself. I'm an immigrant. I don't belong here, but in Uganda, I don't belong. But when I started to say, but whose responsibility is it to do something for myself, even if it meant difficulty, even if it meant once in a life, I lost everything I built, even if it meant this and that and that. Whose responsibility? It's my responsibility. And how can I do it? I have to learn the system. Maybe I have to take a longer way than a native Swede had to do. But now we're at the same place, which means that I am an employer, he's an employer. Now I can employ someone I know that had to take the hard road. But if I didn't take the hard road, and if we only have Swedish as an employer, then we cannot help each other.
Thank you so much, Fahad. Watambudde ng'omusajja Omuganda, and njagala kapaati kana akasembayo ebigambo bye bisembayo obitwale mu Luganda omuntu awule ku chance ewulira ku Luganda. To you, our non-Luganda speakers, apologies for this last segment. We are taking it in Luganda. We want to see how inspiring Fahad can be with his groundedness in culture and his cultural heritage, despite living in Sweden for 35 years. Of course, we all know how recently I watched a video of a certain celebrity in Uganda whose daughter has been away from Uganda for 5 years. And I saw her giving a speech in Book, Tachajukira Uganda. But of course, we respect people's spaces. People choose how they want to live life. But for you, Sebo, I want us to take this last one in Uganda. Uina wakonyeeko ku bazadde engeri gye mwalinga nga banoonya okubalansinga obulamu n'okuyamba abantu e Uganda, how it affected you. Bigambo ki by'olina eri omuntu atulaba ku bazadde abaliwo kati engeri gye balina okufuna balance eyo?
Kati ebigambo bye abazadde twakula nabo bwe bajja wano bo balina dream nti bajja kubeera wano myaka 10-15 baddeyo, naye fe abaana ate ffe twafuna ate grounding endala. Kakati abo abazadde kyenakoonyeeko nti abazadde babeera wano ne bakola ennaku 7, bakola 12-hour shift, babeera nga bakola myezi 10, bamisinga Christmas, bamisinga birthday, bamisinga just okukola, ate ne badda e Uganda ate ne babeera sometimes beeyisanga ate abaali waggulu nnyo, which fe abaana chief to affectinga olw'ensonga nti omuntu akuze e Uganda alabe sengaawe oba alabe kojjaawe oba alabe jjajjaawe abeera e Bulaaya azze wano, omugagga azze ate bo beeyitanga ng'abagagga, then affe abaana nabo batuyisa ng'abagagga, batandika okwogera naffe Oluzungu, teboogera naffe Luganda, era kirabika tebaagala kutusika eri yaabwe, batuteeka wali. Ekikyembadde nkoonako nti bwe mugenda e Uganda mba nkitegeera nammwe mwagala okurelaxinga, mwaka mulamba mukoze mu winter, mu snow mwe butyo, naye abantu b'e Uganda nabo obutabayita bano nti abagagga ab'e Bulaaya bazze. Nedda, omuntu ojja Uganda ajje kurelaxinga olwa tomanyi ebintu byayiseemu. Just gino emyezi 10 gyayiseemu just okujja okubalabako omwezi gumu, oba tobimanyi, si babagagga. Era abaana bwe mugamba nti omwana w'omugagga temutiisa ng'abaana b'abagagga, tuli bantu wamu, temwogera mwogere Luganda. Oba tamanyi Luganda oba alwerabidde mumuyambe atandika odduyiga, abeere nti alina naye abeere nti naye neerabidde Oluganda, naye buli kifo ky'omusekerera lwaki temumuyamba ne mugamba omanyi katuddemu otandika odduyiga, which means omwaka ogujja ajja kuba nabadde Uganda nayizeeyo ebigambo bino bino, atandike naye okuyiga.
Ensonga eyo etegeerekese. Yes, Fahad, ku kirala kyenjagala okooneko nga tumaliriza, era okoonye ku balance gye tufuna mu ngeri gye tubeera mu systems zino effe ng'abagwira, naddala ku bintu ngeri gye twagala okugenda okulaba nga tuyingira mu mirimu egyo egy'amaanyi, yinza okuba sirina gy'amaanyi naye engeri gye twekkiririzaamu. Njagala oteekeyo ekigambo kimu 2 ng'obuulira omunnayuganda yenna gy'ali. Gwe ng'abadde mu Sweden wafuna award ey'okubeera social worker eyasinga mu nsi yonna mu mwaka gwa 2008. olwaleero otambula nga social worker. Naye twalabika video wali eri emabega wano ka video kano nga awo yes awo Fahad myaka wagambye yalinga 95 ndoza nga tulinga myaka 9 actually ndoza 8 oli mu kuzina mazina maganda ekyezo tambulidde nnyo mu culture kuba kati twogera ku myaka mingi emabega ekyo bwe kikuyambi kityanga omuntu okutambula ng'oli grounded ng'otambula mu culture kiyambi kityo obulamu bwo
kiyambi obulamu kubanga culture ya Uganda wano otuuka mu biseera mu Sweden owe Bulaaya gobeera so isolated obeera mu kayumba ko obeera bwotyo naye nfe Abaganda twagala nnyo okubeera nga okukuŋŋaanya just okutuula okukuba olwali okuba olubuuzi kituyambe nnyo okubanga kakati ngaffe era tukuŋŋaanya tuseka tukola kino tubeera nga okubanga ebyo byatuyamba nnyo okubeera nga tukuŋŋaanya twogera kakati nga wano tubadde tuplaniga naffe ng'abakulu tugendeko e Uganda naffe tutandika okunoonya gye tuva kakati kituyamba nnyo kyanyamba nnyo okubanga culture twakulamu nnyo abantu kati betukuze nabo naffe tutanze okufuuka abazadde tutanze okufuuka ekyo kakati naffe twogera naffe tugendeko e Uganda ng'abazadde baffe bakola tugende ffenna naffe tutandike okuexploringa naye nga tutwale abaana baffe kakati generation tukikuliddemu tukirabyeko era omuntu era waliwo wano abazaalidde bano bo baali tebamanyi Luganda naye kakati engeri ekkali kyewe ekyo kakati nabo boogera Oluganda era bagenda kutwala abaana baabwe e Uganda.
Fahad manyi wetusalawo kwogera ebyokwogerako ddala bijja kubeera ddala bingi naye njagala okwebaza olwakadde kowadde njagala okwebaza gwe omulabi waffe atula ku Euroforum. Program eno twatandikidde mu lulimi Luzungu naye twagadde omusajja ono omugave ate ayogereko ku lulimi Oluganda. Manyi musobola okugamba wali wano beeyogeza lwaki akati aba yakulanga Oluganda alwogera lwaki talwogedde ku interview Oluganda muluwulidde omusajja ali proud era owulira ne program z'alina ate nga n'omukyala gw'alina mu Sweden naye ate yagamba abaana ajja kwogera Luganda waka atajja bazza Uganda wantu twogera ku Luganda naye tetutegeeza nti olulimi lwokka oluzaalira mu Uganda luli Luganda gwate oyinza okuba nga tokkiriza nti lulina kuba Luganda ng'oli Munyoro ng'oli Muteeso ng'oli Musoga buli omu ekikulu kya byonna olulimi olwo olukunnyonnyola nti gwe oyo. So Fahad njagala okusaba obwe ebigambo byo ebisembayo tube nga ate tumaliza sheno nga tonnabiwanjaawo okujjukiza Omunnayuganda abeera mu Norway nokola nagikoze dda mu Luzungu obajjukiza nti enkya okulonda ekukoma enkya tulonda oba okulonda kuzze kubeera wano mu Norway okulonda kutandika mpola mpola paka olunaku olusembayo so okulonda kukoma nkya kugwe atannaba kulonda nga oli citizen kuba buli citizen alina right okulonda abatali ba citizens balina permanent residence bakoma kulonda ku level ya municipality kati gwe citizen okataba ka kumifu koina mulimu privilege eri embedded muli ekuwa chance of influencing obukulembeze bw'ensi yo so mbajjukiza nti mugende mulonde mu Abannayuganda ba citizens abeere Norway mutandika okwemulugunya ku bintu bino ebimu nga muli wali eri wateeka akaluluko olina ne right eyo naye oba tolina right eyo mulugunya ku prime minister na minister anosole na MP nga tewamulonda kati omugamba kigwa atamulonda. I mean, just common logic. Omubanja akigwe ekyotamutuma ngenda kukola. Simple. So, mbajjukiza nti mugende mulonde. Musobola okubeera eyo nga mubeera nga tubeera wano tugambe Uganda. Kale zino ensi zaatereera. Obyogere nga ddala ddala olonda. Naye mbeera ne mbuzaabuza abantu e Uganda nga ne munsi muno muli tolonda. Bakuwadde privilege y'okuba nti osobola influence. Ate ebintu bikola. So, akawadde kalowoozo ak'okujjukiza gwe. Nkujjukiza nti gwe abeere Norway still nga 11 October tulina independence celebrations affe era tulina kubaako ne independence cup gye tujja osooka okuzannya tujja kuzannya Ghana, Sudan ne Zimbabwe ate ffenna n'abazannyi bonna n'Omunnayuganda buli omu gy'ali tukuŋŋaane olweggulo tubeere ku party tubayita nammwe nga temubeera Norway naye nga musobola okufuna waakanyonyi awo Finland, Sweden, Fahad ojja ku independence tunyunyemu ebintu ebifaananako ebiki so far sebo njawunzike sheno nala mu Luganda lwaffe luli omuntu alembera okitegeera nti tunyumya mu nyambo z'amalwa omusajja muganda musajja ayogera oluganda naye nga taluwulira sebunzi kasho n'ebigambo ebyo bisembayo
njagala okusooka okwebaza nti ogupadde opportunity okubeera wano okwogerako naabwe era nsuubira nti at least obugambo bwenjogeddeyo waliwo omu oba babiri abafunyemu experience era kyembagamba bwenna abawuliriza nti ebintu Bulaaya waliwo ebiseera ebibeera ebizibu naye bwe tuyiga system yaabwe katugezaako oba twagala kola foundation change tulina okufenna awamu okuyiga system yaabwe okuyiga ebintu bakola ebintu naffe tubeere nga tulina engeri gye tuba affectinga mu ngeri eyaffe naffe tuyambagane neyanziza neyanzike
Sebo Fahad njagala okwebaza olwakadde kowaddeyo weebale okugabanako naffe embooziyo emboozi ng'ezo ng'otappinga mulamu wasoose tugamba memory gye walina 3 years nga okyalina Uganda nga you've given us too much okuba nti otuwadde story yo ntera nnyo okuddayo nga maze show zino okuziraba n'ennyongera okuzejjukanya n'okwekenneenya of course nange okweimprovinga naye nnyumirwa nnyo ng'oddamu okuwulira emboozi nga zino kati story yo neesunga okutuula okuddamu okubeera ku side eri eya viewer njagala omunnayuganda gwe ali Norway okuyozaayoza n'obakulisa gyo ababadde ku Eras Festival era eyo nayo ya culture ensi ez'enjawulo zikuŋŋaana nziba nga tezidisiplayinga culture yaazo naffe twabaddeyo bannaffe abatukiikiridde era twagala okubayozaayoza n'okubeebaza njagala okwebaza mwenna abali gye muli nga muli bakulembeze mu communities ez'enjawulo nga muli baweereza mu bintu eby'enjawulo naddala ng'obuweereza obwo tosasulwa mwebali lemerako nati ne mbajjukiza nti mu bye muweereza mujjukire nti mukolera bwereere naye olumu bayinza obutabasiima nga musuubira ne munyiigamu ng'abantu kale tukolera bwereere kale tebatusasula ebyo mwewale ng'obikozesa kubanga naye wali otandika okukolera obwereere walina option egamba sijja kusobola mujjukire nti buli muweereza regardless of your paid or not your subject to accountability so bakubuuza ne baquestioninga gihambe enough of course weekuŋŋaanye abamu abatuquestioninga bakozesa amaanyi mangi weekuŋŋaanya nowa answers ezo oba oli awo no advising abantu abo kuweta ne better approaches next time naye tuweereze nga tumanyi nti abantu betuweereza bajja tusiima olwo tebajja tusiima tugende mu maaso ate olumu aba tebatusiimye era tujjukire nti okuweereza kwaffe kulina osukka bo so nga ate batubuuza tube very humble enough to respond to feedback bwe ziba nga zizze otherwise twagala nga Euroforum kubeebaza kwekumiranga ku Euroforum buli kiseera ne mubeerangako Sandejja Samantha Elf munaffe owe Finland agenda okupostinga era mujja kubanga flyer mugiraba nja okwebaza tiimu mwenna wetuweereza kyala n'omu Irene Uganda Janat Nagola Yahaya e Uganda Esther Nantonga e Uganda Jorin Nassali e Sweden Smogi John Rene e Denmark n'omukyala Samantha Elf e Finland mwenna abatulaba tubeebaza ne twebaza abagenyi nga ggwe Sebo Fahad abafise obudde essaawa zino 2 z'otuwadde ziba nnene ate nga twawaddeko ne conversation mu prep call muteekateeka show Sebo weebale nnyo nammwe mwenna abakyaddeko ku Euroforum twagala okubeebaza nja okwebaza omukyala Maureen Melody Najita twakyaza Sunday wedde naye ate yatwa story ye ebyokuyigiramu byali bingi nkujjukiza gwatulaba oyinza okwagala gw'okukyaza otubula story yo obeera waddembe okukubira ku ssimu eyo mu WhatsApp ate n'otubuulira ku kiki wandiyagadde twogereko gwe ku lulwo oba story yo oba n'okurecommendinga guests eno Euroforum slogan yaffe egamba communicating with peers yemmwe ate era nga bino byonna byetukola bye twagala bitwogerere even after we passed on bibe ensonga ebyo twagala okudefendinga ne binnyonnyola abantu ababaddewo sobeera waddembe reaching out n'okutuweeza ka message tuwa feedback ate n'otubula omuntu gweyagala tukyaze otherwise we sign out for now okubeebaza Sebo mbadde n'omukulu Fahad Luyombya Sweden mwebale nnyo mwebale ddala sigadde ni Moses Mugisha wano mu nsi erimu Sculpture Park esinga obunene no way bale Fahad kyemwewanyisa Sweden
twawamba Norway ne Finland
akusongerako kale bana we sign out for now bye bye
Welcome to Euroforum UG, where we address Ugandans from Europe, USA, Asia, Africa, Australia, and all over the globe. We share experiences, opinions, and expertise on current affairs, educative lifestyle, religion, and family matters. Follow, subscribe, and like our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Euroforum UG. You can also join our live shows every weekend on our social media platforms. For more information, visit our social media platforms or email us at euroforumug@gmail.com or WhatsApp us on +4740 574040. Euroforum UG, communicating with peers.